Okay, so how do you find the coordinates of a hole? Now, a hole in a graph is a discontinuity, but it's different from a vertical asymptote. So this graph here has a vertical asymptote at x equals -3. So this right here, all right, because when x gets really close to -3, so if you were to trace this and look at what happens when x gets closer to -3, so like -2.9 and then like -2.999, like notice how y gets really big because this -2.99 is making the denominator really small. And when you take a number and divide it by a much smaller number, that number is going to, the magnitude of that number is going to get bigger. So like it's going to approach infinity or negative infinity. So that's why there's a vertical asymptote at -3. All right. Now, why is there a hole at -1? Well, first, how do we even know if there's a hole at -1? Well, if we went to trace it and we go over -1, we see that, +1, there's a hole. It's undefined because this is a little different now. If you plug in 1, it's the same as an asymptote where it gives you a denominator of 0. And if you divide by 0, you get undefined. But since there's the same factor in the numerator and the denominator, that behavior that happens at -3 doesn't happen because these factors cancel out. So if I were to plug in something like 0.99, something really close to 1, the graph is just not really affected because even though the denominator gets really small, the numerator cancels out with it. So what you do to figure out what this y-coordinate of the hole is, which the calculator isn't telling us, is you graph the simplified version of that function. So you cancel out x minus 1 over x minus 1. Now if we trace, or if we plug in 1 into this graph here, we get 1 plus 2 over 1 plus 3, which is 3/4. And if we trace the blue graph now, we see that we get 0.75 because these graphs, f1 of x and f2 of x, are identical. They're the same exact graph, except at one point. And that one point is at 1, because if you plug in 1 into the red graph, you get a denominator of 0. If you plug in 1 into the blue graph, you don't. So you pretty much use the simplified blue graph, the one without the hole, to estimate where the y-coordinate of the hole would be. So the hole would be at 1, 0.75.